everybody, it's Carolina, and for today's video I wanted to make a video talking about something that I wanted to make a video about a long time ago, but I never really had the courage to do it. And now that I'm way past it and I'm open to talk about it to people, I want to talk to you guys about my depression, self-harm, and bullying story. This might come as a shock to some people because some people, they know me personally, like a lot of people that know me personally, they're just like, oh, she's not the type of person to do that, or she's not the type of person to go through bullying. But I've been through it, and a lot of my friends know about this, and not a lot of my family know about this. So it's my family that is watching this, and that's just like, oh my goodness, yay. This is something that I don't want people to think I'm making fun of, and that I'm not talking light about it, because it's not something that people need to think light about or talk light about, because it is a very serious issue in a very serious manner. But I just want to talk to people about my experience with it, because I know a lot of girls are going through it, and not girls, but just people in general go through it. Let's just talk about this. So, majority of my life, I've always been not really caring about my body, meaning like my weight, because I've always been, known as the skinny friend, and, putting on weight wasn't a problem. And when I saw children, like when 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, a lot of kids, they were either like, gaining weight or whatever, and I never had that issue. So growing up, I was always known as a skinny friend. I was known as a friend that, didn't have to worry about my weight. I was, never self-conscious about it. Like, I could wear a swimsuit and it wouldn't be a problem to me, and I wouldn't be insecure about it. But it wasn't until about when I was 11 years old, 11 to 12, I was in 7th grade, and I feel like a lot of kids have problems, like, in 7th grade or in middle school. Just because it's time of like puberty, and you're trying to find out who you are at such a young age, and you're growing up, and you're learning things that you don't learn about anymore when you're little. And so it was in the 7th grade, and I remember I was walking in the hallways in school during passing period from one class to another, and somebody asked me, they were like, hey, like one of my friends at the time, they were like, hey, I just have a question for you. And I was just like, yeah, what's up? And they just go, I don't know if you've been asked this before, but are you anorexic? And I was just like, no, because I didn't know what that was. I never heard of anorexic or the word anorexia or anything like that. So I was just like, no, I'm not anorexic. They're like, oh, okay, I'm just wondering, because you're like really skinny and you just, you don't gain weight. And I was like, thanks, that's nice to know, but I'm not anorexic. I'm like, okay, just wondering. So I didn't think anything of it, but then I found out what anorexia was, and I was like, no, I'm not anorexic. Like, I've never been diagnosed as it, or as that, and I was like, whatever. So I blew it off, and it wasn't until it got around people, and they started asking me, like, more and more people started asking me if I was anorexic, and they would just be like, but you're so skinny, like, I could break you like a twig, I could break you in half, oh my gosh. And they would go up to me, like, take their fingers and, like, put their, hand around me and be like, oh my god, I can fit my thumb to my index finger, I can put it around your wrist and there's still space. Or they would just be, like, calling me nicknames like twig, toothpick, chicken leg, stuff like that. And I always known that I was skinny. I've always known that I never had a problem gaining weight, but I never really had an issue with it up until middle school. People started making fun of me for it. And some people take that, being skinny and having a high metabolism as something like it's a blessing, but for me, I didn't think about it that way. Just because so many people made fun of me for it every day, if not every day, it was like every other day. I remember not a day went by that people asked me if I was anorexic, or people asked me if I have an eating disorder. And I thought the way to fix that problem was to, start eating more, and start eating like unhealthy foods that came to make me gain weight. And that didn't even help at all. It, in fact, made the whole situation even worse. to where people would see me eating food and see me eating unhealthy foods and they'd be like, oh my god, she's so fat, look at her, she has like 3 cookies in her backpack or whatever, look at her trying to sneak food in to gain weight. And I was like, okay, this is not working. So I stopped eating, and like lunch would come around and I wouldn't eat lunch. People would be like, are you not going to eat? Why aren't you eating? Oh my god, are you trying to lose weight? Are you anorexic? And after that, it just became like a cycle. It was just like eating, not eating, eating, not eating, eating, not eating, to the point where I hated myself so much because of it. I felt like I was too skinny, and I felt like I was, being too fat by eating, and I just hated myself for it. I hated living in a body and having this problem where I got made fun of for it almost every day. And I don't use the word hate a lot. But I hated myself so much for it. And I hated what people were doing to me and what they were saying to me. And I told myself that I wasn't going to take my anger out on anybody else because I knew that would get me in trouble. And I'm not a fighter. I don't physically fight people. I'm not that type of person. Before, I wasn't the type of person to defend myself because I was scared of what people were going to say to me. And I decided to take my anger out and my guilt out on myself. And I decided to cut myself. For the first time in 7th grade, I was like 11 years old. 11 or 12 years old, I don't really remember. And my first thought after I cut myself was, this hurts. I'm not making fun of people that cut themselves. I'm not laughing because of that. I just know that I have a very, very low pain tolerance, and I hate pain. I hate needles. I hated getting shots growing up. I don't know why I decided to cut myself. If I knew that I do not take pain very well, but I did it. And it was the only way, like I said, to take my anger out on myself, because I wasn't going to take it out on other people. I wasn't going to fight other people for it. I wasn't going to, stand up for myself for it, because I wasn't the type of person to stand up for myself. I didn't have that confidence. And so this was something that I continued with all throughout the 7th grade. Until about the summer, going into 8th grade, I told myself I wasn't going to cut myself anymore. I said, I'm not going to do this. This is 8th grade. This is a new year. I'm about to be in high school. I'm not going to do this anymore. This is like the end of middle school. Most of these people I'm not going to see anymore, so it doesn't matter. So I'm not going to do this anymore. So the entire summer, going into 8th grade, I did not self-harm myself once. I did not pick up any, scissors, razor blade. I didn't do any of that. But then coming back to 8th grade, I saw the same people that bullied me, and they were like, hey, what's up, chicken legs? You haven't gained 1 pound over the summer. And I was like, here we go again. So I told myself I was going to be strong. I told myself I was going to do this, and I just couldn't. It came to the point where I cut myself again. And when I cut myself this time, I did it not only on right here, my forearm, but I also did it up here, like where my bicep is, on both biceps, and also my legs, and also right here. Like, I have a scar that you probably can't see on camera, but if you're in person, you can see it. And I just continued to self-harm myself, and I eventually came to the point where I was so mad at myself, and I hated myself so much, and I felt like nobody was there to help me out, and there was nobody I could talk to about this, that I contemplated on suicide. And I remember the first time I contemplated doing it, and I just thought everything was going to be okay. Everything was going to be fine. No, nobody's going to worry about this anymore. Like, I don't have to deal with this anymore, My problems are going to be gone. I started doubting my faith. I started doubting, what friends were. I started doubting everything. And the first time I actually got help was when my mom, she was talking to me about something one day, and she was talking to me about like wrists, like the rotation of your wrists. And I was in the passenger seat, and she was obviously driving, and she wanted to grab my left arm and look at my wrist. And I said, no, grab my right arm, because I'm right-handed, and I cut myself on my left hand, my left wrist. And she's like, no, let me see your hand, let me see your arm. And I was like, no, look at this one. And she goes, what's wrong? Why won't you let me look at your arm? And I used to cover my cuts up and everything with like jackets and, long sleeve shirts and like, those the sweatbands that people wear around there, like it's like a sweatband, like it's like this thick and it covers like this much of your arm, which I would wear on my arms and everything. And my mom, she grabbed my arm and she saw that I cut myself here, the one that there's a scar now, and she said, what's that? I said, it's nothing. She goes, no, that's not nothing. What is that? I said, I ran into a tree. Tree scraped me. She goes, that's not what a tree does to you. You don't just scrape your arm like that from a tree branch. What happened? And I broke down. And immediately, she took me to therapy. She didn't take me to rehab, so she took me to therapy. And I was immediately put on antidepressants. And I was in therapy once a week, about an hour and a half, going to therapy, making sure that the doctor's checking up on me and all this stuff. And here I am, 2015, I'm 19 years old, 6 years later, and I have not self-harmed myself since. It's something that I have to deal with every day because it is an addiction. I was addicted to it. I self-harmed myself for 2 years straight. And I don't want other people to go through that. And my message to you guys is, if you are hurting, if you're dealing with bullying, there is help. For girls that struggle with insecurities about their body and self-image, just know that there is no such thing as the perfect body or the ideal body. There's not. If you're 105 pounds, you're 105 pounds. If you're 175 pounds, you're 175 pounds. Every body type is beautiful. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise, because if they're telling you that you're too skinny or you're too fat, they're wrong. And in fact, very soon I am going to be going with my family, the women in my family, to get the semicolon tattoo, and mine's going to be right here on my arm. And if you don't know about what the semicolon tattoo is, to raise awareness for those that have gone through depression and anxiety and self-harm, and I'm deciding to get it because of what I went through. So that's my story about my depression and self-harm and bullying, and I hope this video really inspired a lot of people out there to not do what I went through. And if you're struggling, there is help. Like, I know it's so cliche and I know it's so, like, everybody says this, but, like, it does get better. It does get better. Don't think that ending your life is gonna make everything better, because it's not. It's not at all. It's the worst possible thing. And I see stories on the news of like people, committing suicide because of their depression or they're being bullied, and just know you don't want to be that person on the news. Your parents don't want to be at your funeral. No parent should ever be at their child's funeral. So I hope this video helped a lot of people, and I want to just tell everybody out there, especially young girls that are about going through this phase, that you are beautiful, and don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise, no matter what your body type is. You are beautiful. So I hope you guys like this video, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.